Okay, so today we have our FAFSA workshop session. Um, the theme of the month for our trio staff is support. Now, the way that the 21-22 FAFSA completion supports you is through financially. With that being said, a little bit background on me. I'm Derek Holmes. I am the academic counselor slash program coordinator at the Steubenville campus. Prior to that, I worked 3 years in financial aid. So although it doesn't make me an expert, it gives me a little bit of background that can help you through your FAFSA process. Um, so the first thing, our goals for this workshop, we're going to define how the FAFSA process supports you. We'll then go over some helpful links to complete your FAFSA. One of the big questions that always comes up is whether a student is independent or dependent. So we'll go over what categorizes that. We'll then go through a 21-22 FAFSA demonstration for a dependent student. And then finally, we'll have question and answers if anyone has those. So as I stated, our TRIO SSS program, our theme for December is support. Again, how the FAFSA supports you is through financially. The FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And again, that's free. So if you're looking online and it says pay $20 or something to complete the process, don't do that. That's someone just completing it for you. And we have both through TRIO and through EGCC staff that will help you with your FAFSA process. Now, financially, the FAFSA is your application for the Pell Grant. That is money that is set aside for you to attain your bachelor's degree. There's also the FSEOG grant. Again, that's a grant money that is on a first come, first served basis. You do need to qualify for that with a 0 EFC. That's something we'll get to it at the end. Your FAFSA also qualifies you for a work study position. Now, I know some of you already are in the process of having work study jobs. And of course, the coronavirus has slowed down that. But that's a first come, first serve again. If you qualify and you do your application, the sooner you do that, the more likely you will have your choice of jobs or even a job period. Because once those are filled and the money is spent, there's no way to get any more. And then finally, scholarships. Again, scholarships are free money to the student. EGCC puts out their scholarship application anywhere between Christmas until about March. You cannot, you are not eligible for any scholarships if your FAFSA is not completed. So the sooner you do your FAFSA, the better. Once you complete your FAFSA, it'll say it's submitted. Now, it normally will take 3 to 5 business days to get to EGCC, or if you're transferring to a 4-year institution, it will get there. They don't always instantly bring them in. Like this time of year, EGCC will not start working on the 21-22 FAFSAs. They will start working on those around February. So again, with the scholarship openings, the scholarship application is usually due around April. Your FAFSA not only needs to be in, but then it also needs to be completed. So once it's in, the FAFSA can randomly be selected. About 30% of FAFSAs are selected for what's called verification. Now, this is simply that the Department of Education has tasked EGCC or whichever 4-year institution you're transferring to with collecting further documentation to support the information that you put on your FAFSA. It can seem like a tricky situation, but again, there's always paperwork that can be retrieved to set up, to fulfill your verification requirements. And again, if you need help with that, the financial aid office, which will give contact information at the end, is always available to answer any of those questions. So some of the helpful links. Your FSA ID and password. These are your electronic signatures and password to sign your FAFSA. It's very important that you keep and have a record of this somewhere, because if you don't, while you can do the forget password and you can retrieve it, it's not always the easiest process. That website can be found at fsa.ed.gov, which is right here. And this is a create, and you will see if once you have one, you're going to want to manage it, and you can do forgot username, forgot password. Okay. You'll also, for your 21-22 FAFSA, that'll be fafsa.ed.gov. Now, I've noticed in the past that Chrome is the best browser to use. This is because on other browsers, whether it's Firefox or Safari, it can time out while you're doing your FAFSA, and Chrome seems to have the least amount of issues with this. It's by no means perfect, but that website would be right here. And since you were all returning users, you would select this login section. And that's where you'll enter your FSA ID and password. And then finally, the tax information. Now, this isn't something you need ahead of time. You may, if you aren't going to use the data retrieval tool, which we will go over in a minute. But if needed, irs.gov has all your information. You will click on Get Your Tax Record. And then you can request by mail or online. By mail, it does take 5 to 10 calendar days, but you only need your mailing address from your latest tax return, your social, and your date of birth. Whereas if you request it instantly online, you'll need more information, which includes a personal account number, which not everyone has. Those are the best links to help you with your FAFSA. Now, again, the earlier you do your FAFSA, the better. Again, for grants like the FSEOG, for your scholarships, for your work study positions, and specifically for verification. Now, that's a big one because until your verification is complete, your financial aid will not be paying on your account. The next part is determining eligibility. Now, many students question whether they are independent or dependent. To be an independent student, you need to be 24 years of age or older on January 1st of 2021. If you are younger than that, but married, you're also independent. Or if you have children that you support more than 50% of their financial support, if you're a veteran of the armed forces, or if you are homeless, a ward of the court, or an emancipated minor. Now, with those, you will need documentation proving, if you're not 24 or older, you will need documentation proving any of those things because your FAFSA will come through as dependent, and then the school will have to change it to make you independent with this documentation. So if you do not meet one of those, you are a dependent student. With a dependent student, the big thing is that you will need your parent information. I know that this is not always the easiest to retrieve, but you'll need your parents and your 2019 tax information. Your parents will also need to have an FSA ID and password. So where we showed you, whoopsie, right here, instead of the manage, if they don't have one, or if they forgot what theirs was from last year, they can do the same thing. But if they need to create one, it'll just be on the create tab. Without this information, your FAFSA will be, without this information, your FAFSA will be rejected. And again, no aid will pay onto your account. And then also, one of the big things is if a student lives on their own, they have since they were 18, 16, and are paying for everything, their parents do not help them financially at all. Unfortunately, that still does not make you independent. Anything that makes you independent will have to have legal documentation with it. Okay, so we're going to go through a demonstration as long as it works. This will be for a FAFSA renewal, which is anyone who's done their FAFSA before. It'll be for the 21-22 FAFSA, and it'll be for a dependent student, mainly because there's just a couple extra pages with the dependent students. Independent students would just skip a few of the pages. So let's log in and hopefully it works. So once you click on this login button, now this is just a demonstration page. So the information is going to be stuff that the Department of Education has set up. It won't be perfect by any means, but we'll walk through as many screens as possible. Again, if you have questions on specific screens, you're certainly welcome to reach out to me, which you'll have my information at the end, or always reach out to your financial aid office. So we're going to click on I am the student. Here's where you have to put in your FSA ID, username, email address or mobile number, and then after your password. So again, this is for a dependent student who is a renewal, and it's worked about 75% of the time when I've done this. So ideally it will. Okay, they always give the disclaimer at the beginning. Accept. Next, you'll come up to this page. There are 2 tabs. Make sure we are on the 2122. That's always a major sticking point. Students think they're done with it, but they did the wrong FAFSA. Try to click on FAFSA renewal. That brings up a lot of your information from the previous year, and it saves you time. Creating a save key. This is just in case you get logged out. You can log back in, and your information will be saved. I simply put 1, 2, 3, 4. Click on the next button. And here's where we struggle. Okay. Here is just what the FAFSA will be going through for the student information. All right. So a lot of this information will be given to you when you hit your renewal. It'll already be logged in. You'll see at the top here all the sections we're going to be going over: student demographics, school selection, dependency status. And that's where it'll decide if you're an independent or dependent student. Now, again, you can put information that'll make you an independent student in there, but just remember you'll have to back that up with legal documentation. Then if you are dependent, it'll ask for parent demographics, parent financials. These are the steps that if you are independent, it will skip. It'll go right on to the student financials. You'll sign and submit, and you'll get a confirmation. So in your student information, go through, make sure your social, your first name, your middle initial, your last name, and your date of birth are all correct in there. If not, make changes. If your social security, because that is one you cannot make a change on, if that is incorrect, you're going to have to do it on the FSA ID, and it is a little bit tricky because they only want one person attached to one social security number. So if it's not, you may need to make a phone call to the FAFSA people. Next, once all your information is in there and correct. Okay, the next is you'll be putting in your email address and your phone number. Again, if it's already in there, great, make sure it's correct. You'll then be using your mailing address. And now since these do change, obviously, again, make sure your address, your city, your state, and your zip are all in there. Once completed, go ahead and hit next. We're still on our student information, so it's going to ask your legal residence, and then it'll ask if you've been a legal resident there over the last 5 years, whether you hit yes or no. I think if you hit no, let's just see here, it'll just ask when did you become a legal resident. Then it'll ask if you are a U.S. citizen. This is because only U.S. citizens or eligible non-citizens are able to get federal funding for school. Once complete, hit next. It's now asking you some of your schooling. And here is a page that does affect financial aid. So we're going to go through each one of these. What will be your high school completion when you begin the school year? You're going to obviously want to be one of these 3. That's not a huge deal. High school diploma in this case. Which college degree or certificate will you be working on? Now, here's a question that will trip you up on your FAFSA. You need to make sure that you are putting, because we are a 2-year school, something with an associate's degree or certificate program. Now, if you are going for, if you're transferring to a 4-year institution, you can put your first bachelor's degree. The big one that will hurt is if you put if you're a college graduate professional degree, that's for like a master's degree or beyond. That is not Pell eligible, and that's when you will not get Pell onto your account. Again, our financial aid office can change that, but it's something that they won't even notice unless you were to bring it up. So make sure you click on an associate's degree. Another one that will affect your Pell Grant eligibility is will you have your first bachelor's degree when you begin the school? Ideally, if you're in our program, you would not. So you're going to want to hit no there. And if you are, again, that would make you non-eligible for Pell. What will your college graduate grade level be? Again, another one that will affect your Pell. Make sure you pick never attended, attended first year, second, and if you're going for a 4-year degree, you can pick third, fourth, or even fifth. Once you hit this first year or continuing graduate professional, again, it'll be a red flag that there's no Pell. We're gonna say second year sophomore. Are you interested in being considered for work study? I always say click yes. Some of you would know this is just a simple little part-time job with the school. The nice thing is if you click yes or don't know, all they're going to do is send one email gauging your interest. If you hit no, you're not going to get any emails. But again, it doesn't hurt. You may find a job. Say you're an IT major, you could get in with the IT department. And when I worked in financial aid, there were students who in that exact program that turned into full-time jobs. So that's always a great thing to do. If you already work and you're like, no, never, just hit no. But it doesn't hurt just to hit yes or don't know. Hit next. All right. So the male-female question, this is what you were born. So this is not how you identify. It's what you were classified at birth. So if you were male, the big reason for this is that they're asking for selective service. Selective service is something you have to do between 18 and 26. Not that there's going to be another draft, but that's kind of the point in it. If you're female, you won't even have that question. But if you're male, just hit that yes. You can either hit yes or no, depending if you have registered or not. And if you hit no, it'll ask, do you want us to? And just hit yes, because that is kind of a big deal. It's I believe, a $250,000 fine if they ever were to catch you. So always just make sure you do register with selective service. That can be done at sss.gov or right through here saying, yes, register me. You're next, if you have a driver's license and the state your driver's license is in, put that in here. Here's some of the dependency stuff. Are you a foster youth or were you at any time in the foster care system? Next, you're going to be asking about your parents. To make it easy, you can always say dad is parent one or mom is parent one, just so you don't get confused. We'll say dad, and then you just pick what was their highest grade level they completed. And move on. This one, have you ever received federal student aid? We're going to say yes. And then here's another one that determines your eligibility. And it's, have you ever been convicted for the possession or sale of illegal drugs? And then it's just simply saying, since you said no, based on the answers, we determine that you are eligible for federal student aid. Okay. Next is the school selection portion. You're going to answer where your high school name, the city it was located in, the state. It'll then ask, do you know the school code of your school, you can hit yes if you know it, or if you don't, you can simply put in some of the information for the school, even if it's just the state. It will then return you with all the schools in the state. And I mean, I could have narrowed it down, but I wanted to show you. There's Eastern Gateway. Simply click on the box there. And next. Now you're going to select your housing plans. Seeing that we are not a residential school, which means we don't have any dorms, this is not a huge question. It's either with parent or off campus. What that does is determine your budget. Again, not a huge deal. So now we are getting into the dependency questions, which we talked about earlier. It's asking as of today, and now this is a dependent student, so they're single. The other options obviously were married, divorced, separated, widowed. More of the dependency questions. Do you have children that will receive more than half of your support from you? Or do you have dependents other than your children or spouse? So if you have an in-law or your parents living with you, a niece or nephew that you support, you would click yes there as well. Then here are the other things that would make you a independent student. Are you currently serving on active duty? Are you a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces? Since you were turned 13, were both your parents deceased? Were you in foster care or ward of the court? Are you an emancipated minor? Or does someone other than your parents or step-parents have legal guardianship of you? On or after July 1 of 2020, were you homeless or were you self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? Now, because we are doing this for a dependent student, it is telling us that you are considered a dependent. This means you must provide parental information. You do have a choice if you will or will not. Again, if you hit will not, your FAFSA will come through rejected and you won't get any federal financial aid. If you are a dependent student, unfortunately, you got to click that you will provide. So right there, even if you're an independent student, that question will come up. Just click no if you're an independent student. Now, as you can see, we're talking about parent information. In that case, it's asking if your parents are married, the other options, never married, unmarried, married or remarried, divorced or separated or widowed. And then it'll ask for month and year that they were married. Now that's to determine if it was recently, it'll be determine which tax information they need. Here's where your parents will need to put in some of their information. This is also where their FSA ID and password could be used. I'm hoping. Again, now it'll ask for parent information too, which we said was mom, I think. Okay. Now you will have to put that information because this is a demo. I didn't need to. What is the state of your parents' legal residence and were they there for the last 5 years? Okay, so now determining household ties. This is a big one for your EFC. This is determining how many people your parents support. So in this house, we're going to say, based on that information, we had parents that were married. There was us. And then we add if there's any other children. And then if there's any other dependents. So this determined that there's 3 people in the house. That would be the parents and the student. And then you need to put how many people are in school. So we're just going to say 1, that was us. Okay. Now I'm trying to go a little quick because it says my meeting time is running out. I hope that's not really the case. So now it's asking for financial information. This is for your parents, and you can always see that up here. It says parent information or student information. Plus here we are on the parent financial section. Have your parents completed their tax return? It's either already completed, will file, or not going to file. Now, because they do prior year, which means your 2019 tax information, that year has already passed. So ideally, they would have already filed if they were going to, or if they did not file. It will file, that's a couple years ago. Unfortunately, that can create some red flags. Oh boy. So, and then it's going to ask what type of taxes they did file and how they filed. Here's the big one. If you do not use this data retrieval tool, it will automatically, you will automatically get selected for verification. So using this, it will take you to, it will go from this website, which is a secure website, onto the IRS website, which is also secure. And all it does is transfer over your information. Please do that. It'll then go through all the financials, most of which will get imported from your tax return. And since we're not going to look at that, just because we are running out of time, you'll have to go through those financial information. It'll ask how much your parents, dad made, how much mom made, if there are both there. If not, you're only answering for the one. It'll ask other things that will be more personal. You can certainly reach out if you have questions. It'll ask how much is in your bank account, and that doesn't have to be exact. It'll also ask how much is, if you had businesses, pay child support, those sort of questions. Then you can see it'll do the same thing for the student. They will be the exact same questions. And then at the end, it'll say sign and submit. This is just putting in your FSA ID and password for both you and your parent if you're dependent. And then you'll hit the sign and accept button. And at the end, it'll give you a confirmation page, which will show you your EFC as it's calculated now. Now, with verification, it can change that. It'll also tell you it'll be sent to the school in 3 to 5 business days. So once that's done, if you have any questions, I know we did that quickly, feel free to reach out to the financial aid office at any time. That's finaid@egcc.edu. Or you can reach out to me if you, because they do, I mean, they're dealing with 20, 30,000 students. You can certainly reach out to me as well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. This will be posted on Canvas, so you're going to be all set to review it at any time.